Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. How was your weekend? What with the power situation and then the fuel situation? But I think it might be slightly better, going by some reports. Certainly the power issue that has sort of come back in certain areas, unlike the time when in very recent past we'd be gone for 48 hours, 72 hours, no power at all. It would appear that it's beginning to pick up all over the place. And as for fuel, I think it's something of a ditto situation. But no doubt there'll still be some sort of petering out till we know where we are. Anyhow, brighter days will come. And it's one of the things I want to discuss with my guest this morning, who is he's of here, but at the same time, he's not from these parts. Frisky La is my guest this morning. Good morning, Frisky.
Thank you very much.
Now, Frisky La is, and we'll come to that name shortly. Frisky La is a Germany-based radio and television journalist. He's an author as well, and he's a writer, especially on political commentary. Frisky La went to the University of Ankara in Turkey and then Ruhr University in Germany. And he's emerged with a master's degree in combined communication science, that's the major, and then the minors of political science and social psychology. You will see Frisky La's writings mostly on sites like the Nigerian Village Square, NVS, and then Sahara Reporters, Nige.com. That's apart from his own blog, he publishes copiously. And just looking at some of his writings begin to tell you the kind of person that we're dealing with. I just looked at some of his articles from recent times, and I see things like the enemies of Nigeria are the oppressed Nigerian. Obstacles in Buhari's path. Can Nigeria still be salvaged? And Buhari lacks the talent to handle constitutional democracy. There's more. The latest I could find was of Pharisees and cardinals in the Buhari equation. Well, all the first three that I cited were published back in October 2015. But this last one, of Pharisees and cardinals in the Buhari equation, was published this month, almost, in the sense that it was the 31st of January, the very last day of January. Now, his most recent book, Africa's Diabolical Entrapment. Let me come from there, Frisky. No. First things first. Frisky, La, those are not Nigerian names. And I happen to know that you're from Edo State.
Absolutely.
So, tell me, when you left here in 1980, for further studies, you headed for Germany?
I headed for Turkey.
You headed for Turkey?
Absolutely.
Now, could you tell me about that, please? By now, I've just said that you're now a master's degree holder in a major and minor disciplines. Why Turkey? Everybody was going to the US, everybody was going to the UK, or looking for some English-speaking area. Why did you choose to go to Turkey?
I think in the 1980s, it was a matter of financial constraints. Going to the United States required a huge amount of tuition fees.
Okay.
So I had an admission in one of the United States, one of the American colleges, Philander Smith College. It was in Arkansas. And I was required to pay a tuition of about $2,000 each semester. And my parents were not in a position to afford that amount. So we had to source for other means of education, since JAMB at the time was not of the quality that everybody could jump in at will. There was always what we call this vitamin C, as vitamin connection. Mm-hmm. So we didn't have that, and I had to look for spaces to get ahead with my education, and I picked on Turkey.
Okay, and so you picked on Turkey, but there was also a German connection.
No, when I did my first degree in Turkey, I spent about 1 year in Greece. And in the period I spent in Greece, I ran into a German lady that I eventually got married to. And that's what took me to Germany.
I see. And now you live in Germany.
I live in Germany.
But you also have a presence in Nigeria as well.
Yes.
There's a sense in which we can say you also live in Nigeria.
That's right, yeah.
Well, now, political commentary seems to be your forte. That's your main passion.
Quite
And
correct.
when a photo emerged of you and Baba Obasanjo, OBJ, I think it was last year or so, with you, your arms around the former president, Now we said, this must be a beloved son of OBJ. How did you run into OBJ, and how did he come to like you enough to be inviting you, and I think you are able to drop by him now and again?
In fact, when I started writing my articles way back in 2006, it was a period in which the former president suffered severe persecution in the hands of critics. And most of these critics were hobby critics, they were not professionals. So the space they operated on was mostly the internet. And I actually felt there was a sense of imbalance in the way the man was portrayed. Indeed, there were lots of things he did, like he wasn't engaging the media, he wasn't engaging the press, and wasn't bolstering his public relations image, or whatever the way we might put it. In any case, it came to a stand that whatever he did positively were completely negated, because the powers that controlled the media were so much in control of people's mind that there was just nothing positive that was reflected on Obasanjo. So I thought at the time that things were not correct. So I said, well, all right, the evils they're talking about were correct. I mean, this was a man who just didn't give a damn. He wanted to have governance run his own way.
Okay.
He wanted to have things done his own way. So people weren't comfortable with it, and he stepped on toes. So I thought, okay, if you address those evils, it's all right. But they're also positives, you shouldn't negate. But most of these positives were negated absolutely. Okay. And if you raised it, there was a sense of relativism. People would tend to, subject it to such relativism that it was watered down to meaninglessness, if I put it that way. So then I took up the challenge, and, it was an uphill task. There were lots of, I was persecuted in a sense, because people did not take it lightly. Everybody accused me of being paid. They say I was...
Were you, by the way?
I was not. I didn't know him at the time.
At all? Even after you had come to know him, was there any appreciation? My son, well done?
No way. Mr. President Obasanjo is not the type that expresses appreciation materially. That's what I got to know of him. But we'll get to that later. In any case, I engaged this mob, I'll call them, a critical mob that was largely prevalent at the time.
On the internet?
On the internet, precisely Nigerian Village Square. I started off with Nigeria World, that was controlled by a bunch of guys in the United States. So they just didn't play along with what I was writing, so they kicked me out of Nigeria World. And then I got down to Nigerian Village Square.
Yes.
And in Nigerian Village Square, you had a stronger mob. So, and the mob would really, descend on anything I wrote that sounded... I wasn't, necessarily writing positively about President Obasanjo. I was always trying to strike a balance between both. But that didn't go down well with the people at all.
Have you noticed that people will believe what they want to believe and disregard the rest?
That is the truth.
So if you're not writing what some people want to hear, then it doesn't matter how balanced it is, it's going to get shut down. That's
exactly what I experienced in Nigerian Village Square. And I had to leave the place in frustration and started writing for Nigerian News. So the Nigerian News guy gave me a column that I used for quite a long time. And eventually, I thought my message wasn't getting across the way I would want it. Because, websites like Sahara Reporters grew bigger. And eventually, Premium Times came up. And Leadership also took, very reasonable space on the internet.
Yes.
So, and I had the sense that the Nigerian News was diminishing slowly. So I thought I would do a book. And I wrote the book, Nigeria's Journalistic Militantism, because I thought it was the media that basically influenced the public perception that Obasanjo had among the ordinary persons. So I really tried to do a balancing act in portraying the positives and the negatives.
And I noticed that all the articles that I cited, for instance, just reminding viewers of the title of those articles, The Enemies of Nigeria Are the Oppressed Nigerians, published in October. Obstacles in Buhari's Path, Can Nigeria Still Be Salvaged? Buhari lacks the talent to handle constitutional democracy, and then most recently of Pharisees and Cardinals in the Buhari equation. All of these were published on Sahara Reporters.
Yeah.
So that shows a sort of a shift to where there's... interestingly enough, Sahara Reporters, as you were pointing out yesterday on a radio program, that your understanding of Sahara Reporters and the Sowore, Mr. Sowore, is that he's not a journalist, he's an activist.
Exactly. That's what he portrays himself as. He says he doesn't enjoy being addressed as a journalist. And indeed, he does his job quite fantastically, the way I see it. I mean, yesterday, the issue that was taken up with me was that I portrayed him as my Man of the Year 2015.
Okay. That was your personal.
That was my personal Man of the Year
of
Sahara
Reporters.
Now, I picked on him as my own personal Man of the Year because I think, given all the critical, approach he has taken towards the Jonathan administration, he came to Nigeria during the period of electioneering. Initially, it was a secret affair. He wouldn't want to disclose his location for security reasons. But I don't know how he managed it. He has his contacts, within the basic institutions of the Nigerian phenomenon, and he was able to produce results. It was Sahara Reporters that gave a very clear picture of the direction the election results were held in before the official announcement was made of who won the result. And in fact, the staged element of the results always tallied with what Sahara Reporters had presented with their inside information. And anybody would wonder how did he go that far? I mean,
so just for his sheer courage.
His sheer courage and his in-depth access to quality sources, to the relevant sources. I mean, you were here in Nigeria, for instance. I didn't read that in TVC. There are people, other areas you could look at. It didn't work out, but somebody came from the US and is, having these sources, and they also have the sources in the United States. He has them in England.
I don't know how it works like that, but that's it. Sometimes the Nigerian journalists complain that, look, but that's a story for another day.
Another day.
Indeed. Now, you are most interested in political commentary, as I was saying. And what you say you observed about President Obasanjo in his time, that the press was hardly being fair. If you compare the disposition of the press to Obasanjo then, and you compare the disposition of the press to Buhari now, tell me what differences do you notice?
There is a remarkable difference. The media was almost united in opposition to Obasanjo, but today at least you do have discordant voices who says, look, you do not compare a government of 4 years or 5 years to a government of 10 months. So you still hear these voices coming out of the media, and you now have a divided house in the social media, But in the days of Obasanjo, it was a unitary affair.
Okay.
It was, you really had only very, very isolated voices who would say, give this man a break. Nobody was ready for it. So, coming back to the question you asked first, how did I get to, did I establish intimacy with President Obasanjo? I wrote that book, Nigeria's Journalistic Militantism. He got wind of the book one way or the other, and got his personal assistant to track me down. He got my number, called me in Germany, and asked me if I was Nigerian. I said I was Nigerian. He said, okay, the president was interested in my book, and he got a few guys to read the book and give me feedback, what the content was like. So when he got information that the book was very much in order, then he asked for me to come to Nigeria.
What was the central premise of?
The central premise was that the media was too biased in handling Obasanjo
Okay.
to weigh the pros and cons objectively. So, and that's what I tried to do. I devoted
Would you also say, I beg your pardon for interrupting, would you also say the media is too biased now, today, in the way most of them seem to be understanding of President Buhari?
No, I wouldn't say so, because if you know that the nation, which is run by Tinubu, is part of the establishment, there is no way there could be,
Well, I don't know that it's run by him, but I think I know what you mean.
It belongs to him.
Well, okay.
It belongs to him.
Yeah.
And we know that.
Yeah.
And we know.
Nobody's denying that, but when you said it's run by...
When I say, proprietorship is what I'm trying to point out.
Okay.
And I cannot imagine the nation running any policy that is contrary to what Tinubu perceives of. Unless you want, heaven to descend. So that won't happen.
Even though it has been said in the past that I don't concern myself with their day-to-day.
Blah, blah. Things like that can never be said. A proprietor will always have his say any day. So in any case, I believe that with, news organs like The Nation having a field day, and probably there are one or two other news organs that are sympathetic to the cause of President Buhari, and Sahara Reporters too. Sahara Reporters, Premium Times, now they understand the need to be rid of the decay that was fostered in the country by former President Jonathan. So on that purpose, on that note, I will edge
when
towards...
you say foisted on the country by former President Jonathan, are you being very, very strict and holding him responsible since the buck stops on his desk, no matter how good or otherwise those around him were?
Look, well, you've just said it. It doesn't matter. Nobody asked at the end of the day, who the lieutenants were and who the perpetrators were. The head of the government at the time was Goodluck Jonathan. So he had his chances, he had all the opportunities. Because at the end of the day, you surround yourself with advisors, you surround yourself with people who are going to have things, moving. They give you different advices. And the role that you play as a coordinating president is to understand what choice to make. If you make the wrong choices, you're going to be held responsible at the end of the day. And that's precisely what is applicable to President Jonathan.
And so, whatever, when people say that President Jonathan, did his best, he tried, he all of that, it still goes under what you've just responded to, that, look, at the end of the day, it's your report sheet that we want. And clearly, in your books, you wouldn't score the former president very high.
No, I would not at all. I will not.
Even though people have said he's done tremendous work, they were even proposing his name possibly for a Nobel Peace Prize. All sorts of honors have come since then, in America mainly. There's been a sort of a campaign to, sort of keep him up there.
I can understand the reason for such agitations. You see, nobody sets out to destroy a country. You don't take up the presidency and say, I'm going to run this country down. I mean, everybody believes he's doing the best, given the circumstances surrounding him. But what it boils down to is the quality of choices you make. In crucial aspects, President Jonathan made the wrong choices. And if you had allowed the country to go on the way he wanted it run, he would have run the country aground.
Oh, you believe that?
I believe that
if his party had won the election, you believe that
the country would have been run aground. And now you know what it's like when a country goes broke. Greece was a very clear example of what it would look like when a country. And Greece is lucky; it is a part of Europe, and you see the bailout efforts that other European countries took to come to its rescue. I don't know any country that will come to Nigeria's rescue. So just imagine what will happen
if we had gone down that path. Now, okay, sorry. Now I think most Nigerians had enough. After 16 years of the former administration. You guys in the diaspora, you were also observing, reading all the commentary coming in and out of the country, and so you had a personal feel for it. So people were calling for a change, and when the results came in, they had got the change that they want. But now, as you know, there is now an impatience. I started off with the power situation and the fuel situation, both of which sort of coincided and coalesced somewhere about 2 weeks ago and gave Nigerians veritable hell. Now, there are those who are saying that, not those who are saying, even government has said, it's clear sabotage. Again, from the position of observing in the diaspora, what do you think is going on?
I think people are underrating the enormity of the decay in the system. Now, a quick fix solution that people want to see, it's not something you do when the basic resource that the country relies on goes dwindling. Now, we had years in which the basic commodity that was a mainstay of Nigeria's economy, crude oil, sold at a huge price that could have enhanced savings for a rainy day. Now, we missed out on all that. And what you had in that period was the sharing of funds. You had situations where people...
We didn't know it at the time.
We didn't know it at the time.
That was what was going on.
Look, we didn't know it at the time. We didn't know it officially. We didn't know it formally. But everybody had a sense of a lot of things going wrong in that system under Jonathan. Everybody knew that we made overnight millionaires. And when you had a president who will go to Kenya with a fleet of aircraft, private aircraft, and says, look, this is the state of Nigeria's economy. We now have a lot of private millionaires who have aircraft to go along with me. If you have a president who assesses the state of the nation's economy with the number of aircraft that people fly along with him on a foreign trip, then you know the country's in trouble. We were in deep trouble. Now, we knew definitely that a lot of money was being shared. And even during the electioneering, we knew a lot of money that was dollarized. We knew of gratuities that were handed over to Obas, to traditional rulers in different parts of the country, because he was hell-bent on getting the second term. So we knew things were going wrong.
And then I understand, I remember one of these interesting stories is, was it $2.2 billion, or is it Naira dollar, 2.2 billion, sort of allocated to prayers and spiritual matters. So a lot of things went on. But here we are in a new regime. It's going to be a year old now. I've heard you and others say that, look, the president is yet to be 1 year in office. So how can you compare that with someone who did 5 years in office? And, well, I understand that to one side. But is there a sense in which you can understand the impatience of people to at least have begun to get something of an aroma of this change, if the dish has not actually been set in front of us yet.
But understanding the impatience of Nigerians is a failure of reality check. Now, I expect people to do proper reality check and know what to expect. Now, when you know the enormity of the decay Nigeria has been through, the first question you ask yourself is, where are you going to start sanitizing the country? You just ask yourself,
you need somewhere to stand to do the work.
That's the point.
And there's hardly anywhere
There's
to
hardly
stand.
anywhere to stand at the moment. Now, you see a regime. You see, that's why you asked me a question before we got on the show. If I was urging, if I had a secret sympathy for dictatorial tendencies.
Because, yes, I've read some things where
you've
actually almost, or actually advocated that if only we could find a way to compare, to add a wee bit of the discipline of militarism to democracy, we might make progress further. Did you say that?
Of course I did. I'm even writing a book at the moment that should address that issue much more elaborately.
This is a matter of discipline, right?
It's not a matter of discipline, the matter of the political system we employ. Because what we have right now is a system that is guided by rules and regulations, that doesn't necessarily produce the results that the local society needs. So we are looking, if we had a constitutional system that empowers forceful enforcement, clear enforcement of discipline, there are ways we could curb the excesses.
Do you think those excesses that Nigerians want to curb them, because, I asked that stupid question, because I have heard respectable, very senior men, experienced politicians, not all of them, but a few who have said that this whole change when it comes to how the political system is not going to change. You need to steal money in order to be effective in politics, and I think that's because they just churn bucket loads of the stuff, and nobody's hard-earned money nobody's going to allow his hard-earned money to be chucked around in bucket loads. So I have heard politicians say that you are going to have to steal money in order to be successful in politics. No poor man is ever going to get anywhere in politics. Now, since there's a social psychology aspect to your training, what does this say about people?
Complacency. Because I put it this way, nobody will tell you need to curb excesses when it benefits from the excesses. Now, whatever you do that militates against the beneficial interest of any individual will be subjected to ridicule.
Okay.
When President Obasanjo performed the feat of paying off the debt, Nigeria's foreign debt with the Paris Club, what you heard was, why should that be a feat? What big deal is it?
Yeah.
Every country needs foreign debt to survive. This question of relativism will always stay with us. But the point is, not only we come around to understand what discipline, because I take you back to Lee Kuan Yew, the guy who ran Indonesia for close to 30 years. The guy says, look, if somebody came to me and told me stuff about human rights, democratic principles, I would not be able to take Indonesia to the level I took it. I was able to succeed in salvaging that country to the level it is today because I handled them with iron hand, and I didn't give a damn what constitutional regulations were. So that is Nigeria is in a stage today. It's in an absolute decay where, left to me alone, we would have shoved democratic principles aside for the time being, sort out, clean up your home.
Because you think it's that tough a task.
It's that bad. It is extremely bad.
But nevertheless, you know that there are very, very strong advocates of democracy and the rule of law who will not hear of it. So Buhari is having to take the long road of all the hurdles, all the pitfalls of rule of law and democracy, and people using the law against, to sort of protect themselves, even as they see that they are perpetrators, not the victim. But still, that's the situation we have to work with.
That's right. There's nothing much we can do about it. But the reality though, is that discipline, there is no alternative to enforcing discipline in Nigeria if the country is to move forward at any level.
Indeed. I'll take one moment now to go on a quick break, and when we come back, two things. One, I'll let your calls come in too, so you can also comment or ask questions. And then also, I'll tell you Frisky Lars Edo name, his real Nigerian name. But that's when we come back. Stay with us, please. Okay, welcome back. And my guest this morning, Frisky La. He's a German-based radio and television journalist and author. His most recent book is Africa's Diabolical Entrapment. I'll talk to him about that in a while. I did promise I'd blow his cover. That's his nom de plume. It's his pen name. He writes with that, and all his commentaries are signed by Frisky La. However, his name is, well, you say your name yourself.
Friday Agbonlahor.
There you go. That's his name.
That's my real
Friday
name.
Agbonlahor.
Absolutely.
And now you're going to tell me, how did Friday become Frisky?
Oh, that was a very personal thing in my university days in Turkey. It was a night we were hanging out at a dormitory in the students' hostel when my friends came around and told me that name Friday sounded too awkward. And so from then on, I was going to be called Frisky.
Were these friends what, German, Turkish, or Nigerian?
They were Nigerians.
Nigerian
we lived in the
friends?
same hostel, right? Yeah.
They said to Mr. Agbonlahor that
Yeah, exactly.
Friday
is awkward.
Well,
and I used to be a reader of James Hadley Chase in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I read something about the Larry Moore stamps. So I love the name Larry Moore. So if they called me Frisky, I'll add Larry Moore. So I called myself Frisky
so
La.
Frisky La.
Exactly.
Indeed. Now, tell me a bit in synopsis. You wrote a whole book on the matter, but Africa's Diabolical Entrapment. Is there something about religion and witchcraft and our native beliefs in all of that?
Yes, absolutely. Africa's Diabolical Entrapment is just an assessment of the trap the traditional African find itself today in the fangs of religious exploitations, starting from African traditional religion to the imported religion of the white man, Christianity. I left out Islam on purpose because the problem that Islam poses to the world is not an African thing alone. It's a worldwide phenomenon. But problem we experience in Africa specifically stems basically from Christianity and the African traditional religion. The African traditional religion is one that tends to stupefy the masses into believing things that basically people will laugh over in other parts of the world. You know, talking about witchcraft. You watch African movies and see the concept of people vanishing and see the concept of people putting spell on others.
You don't think those movies are a reflection of the society?
It's a reflection of the traditional society that we live in Africa.
And that I think is still alive.
Well, I don't know how lively it is, but I do know that these are things everybody else laughs over in other parts of the world.
And some people take very, very seriously.
Take them too seriously.
Too seriously.
And the funny thing that I want people to understand is you take things like that very seriously and you look at your level of advancement mentally, physically, and technologically, you see you are very, very backward. But we pride ourselves in some notion that we do hold unknown technology and science that the world is not aware of, but it's not getting us anywhere. Yet we continue to wallow in all those fallacies that there are people who vanish.
But there's witchcraft in England, there's witchcraft in Germany, Turkey, Nigeria, everywhere.
The Halloween phenomenon is what I elaborated in Africa's Diabolical Entrapment. Now, the Halloween phenomenon is not what we think it to be in Africa. The Irish conceives of a witch as an old lady who will put a long drum broom between the laps
the
and float through the air.
Image of
exactly.
a witch.
And we Africans
on a broomstick.
In broomstick. And we Africans believe the witch is one who flies at night or gathers at the coven.
Air Force.
Whatever, you know what I mean, So but basically the understanding of witchcraft, the way it is done in modern Europe and other parts of the world, it's about skills, possessing things that are beyond the ordinary. When you think of a talent, when you think of a genius, you say...
Okay, then we start to go to areas like Illuminati
exactly.
and that kind of thing.
But even that area is not as deeply rooted as our understanding of cultism, of witchcraft, of wizardry, of things like that, things...
And you think we have become a trap of this?
We've been too deeply trapped in it that there's actually no foreseeable way of getting out of it if we had to talk of development. Now, you see, somebody says the witches fly, yet we are not able to produce an aircraft. You say, and the funny thing is, they say when the witches fly across the Atlantic, they lose their power.
Yes.
It's so foolish. And you just laugh and laugh. You just don't know, where Africa is heading.
But there's a common concept that if you carry Okpo Juju and don't pass any water, because if you pass water, you go spoil. Now, I don't know where it came from, but I don't know that the modern day situation is exactly like that.
I am a Benin man, you know. Oba Raman was taken captive by the British when they invaded the Benin Empire. He was locked up and held captive in Calabar and engaged in hunger strike for 30 days. Now, we in Benin had a belief that he had a piece of rag that he tied around his stomach that made him lie for 30 days without eating and drinking, that he was tightening every single day, he would tighten this belt and he would, his hunger would be stilled, and it went on and on for 30 days. But we do know today Bobby Sands, who was the Irish Republican fighter, he went on hunger strike, he ate nothing, he drank nothing, he died in 30 days. So there was no big deal about dying, there was no magical belt, there was no magical piece of textile. These are basic scientific rational understanding of facts.
I think Bello from Ojodu wants to join this conversation. Good morning, Mr. Bello.
Good morning, Mr. Yori.
Thank you for calling.
Good morning, Faith Killer.
Good morning.
I have 3 points to make based on your conversation today. My question to Faith Killer is this. He says Nigeria needs a discipline of the military to take Nigeria forward. And now I want to ask you, first of all, before we gained democracy, we were in a dictatorship. What forward did we move?
Okay, that's one. The two other ones, quickly, please.
The two other ones. Secondly, you as a person, you are in the diaspora, you are making money in the diaspora. What have you done to help our country, Nigeria?
And the third one? The third one,
you portrayed Olusegun Obasanjo as a saint. Meanwhile, you are criticizing Goodluck Jonathan. Give us 5 things, tangible things, we can see that this man did in his 8 years in office.
Okay, Mr. Bello, thank you very much. I got you in 3 different places. The last 2, I think, well, you're making all that foreign exchange. Why are you spending it alone? Why are you not coming here to give it back? And, well, go from there.
If I did an investment, would it be on a placard on a television talk show?
So there's no way for him to know if you are actually doing your best to give back.
That's the truth. And you see,
now the second one, you're presenting President Obasanjo like a saint. What do you want to say to that?
Oh, that is nonsense. I do not present President Obasanjo like a saint.
In fact, your writings make the point.
My writing made the point quite clearly.
He's not a perfect individual.
At all, absolutely not. In fact, you see, when they told me he wanted to see me, I was scared.
Because have my writings caught up with me?
You see, that's the point. Because everybody says President Obasanjo is non-forgiving. Now, if you read those areas, I said I devoted 1 chapter to his achievements. The chapter I devoted to his failures were not funny at all.
Okay.
I addressed issues like the killing of Bola Ige.
Yes.
And then I addressed issues like the empowerment of Adedibu.
And the killing of Bola Ige, I think there's a sense in which you attributed some of it back to his party.
Well, people told me, and I mentioned it in the book, that it was the collective decision of the entire PDP leadership. You understand? Well, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. The man was killed under President Obasanjo's watch. And there was no investigative breakthrough to find out the perpetrators. Indeed.
Now, he also says that here you're in the diaspora. How would you know about it?
How would I know about it? Well, I don't know that after writing my book, I met a lot of journalists here who told me, look, man, I live in this country, I didn't know most of these facts. So, I mean, for some reason, I mentioned yesterday in my talk with Jimmy Desu, that very many of our guys in the country do not seem to be abreast with the current developments in the country. Like, funnily, most people in diaspora do.
Okay, maybe we're too close to the trees to see the forest.
That could be true, I don't know. But I mean, we wake up in the morning, first thing we do is to turn on the internet and get online with the newspapers and keep abreast of things that are happening. So we seem to consume far more details.
Which is how most Nigerians also get their information about what's going on in governance. It's through the papers.
So
but I beg your pardon, because Reverend Dominic has been holding on for a while. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't want to take you up on your whole claims about Christianity. Good morning, Reverend.
Morning, Yori. I wish you could give me some minutes.
I will. I'll give you, like 2.
Yeah. Now, I love your guest this morning. But there's a question I want to ask him. Let me tell you what I like about him. With this kind of democracy, every right-thinking Nigerian knows, even though you bring angels here, we will not have development. That's sure. But I want to talk about the man who was talking about, Obasanjo. In this issue of corruption. Halliburton matter happened in his government. All the matters, all the bribery of these oil companies happen with the officials. Even there's even an idea there, it may be wrong or right, that Obasanjo is part of people that bribed, Halliburton bribed, and have not proved it wrong. What is Ajay saying about that? To me, since 1999 to now, it was a tree we planted in 1999, and what we saw in 1999, we are repeating today. And the man that saw it, mightily, even third term, is Mr. Obasanjo. So we can't exonerate him by the bad governance today.
Okay.
Whether he's a saint or not.
Okay.
He's one who planted this tree of corruption. He was one who planted this tree of, inconsistency in governance. Today, we cannot exonerate Mr. President, Obasanjo, of the challenges you are going through Nigeria.
All right.
But if you want a good governance here, sir, we need a dictator with a human face, like it happened in Ghana. If you want good governance in Nigeria, we need a dictator with a human face, like Jerry Rawlings of Ghana. That's sure.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Reverend Dominic, for calling in. What do you say to that?
Look, I think I agree with him halfway, because we do really need, an iron hand in
a benevolent
Nigeria.
dictator?
A benevolent.
There are people, who shudder at the notion.
No. Dictators
that
can
we've
never
paid
be
so very much, almost too much, for democracy to now intermingle any toxic military aspect.
Look, I'll tell you something. We probably missed out on the opportunity to take advantage of dictatorial instruments in fixing the country.
Because we didn't have honest...
we didn't have honest dictators. That's what I'm trying to tell you. There will be nothing like a benevolent dictator. A dictator has to be upright if it's to move a country forward without the instrument of democratization. But if we went through processes where people enrich themselves instead of enriching the nation. But he made a point about corruption and Obasanjo. When WikiLeaks came out for the first time, there was a statement that was made by Nuhu Ribadu. Nuhu Ribadu was paying a private visit to the American ambassador when he was quoted by WikiLeaks as saying that almost everyone in the Obasanjo regime was stealing. He personally has no doubt that Obasanjo was also stealing. But unfortunately, you can't trace anything to Obasanjo, he says. The man is a master of the game. There is just nothing you can trace to him. And I think that is a fact that still persists today, that there is basically, I'm not aware of anybody who says, I know he stole this. I know what I'm able to attribute to him directly. Everybody agrees he should have stolen. And that is a presupposition.
Well, I don't know that the man himself will agree with that, because the man has said again recently that EFCC has become a toothless bulldog. And a lot of people didn't quite understand that. Apparently, the EFCC worked well by President Obasanjo's assessment, but now it's a toothless bulldog. And that kind of a commentary, given that there's a different administration in charge at the EFCC now, I didn't quite... What sense did you get of what the former president was trying to do?
He told me that last week as well, when 2 days before his birthday, I did a very brief interview with him. He told me that the fear of Ribadu is the beginning of wisdom. That was what he craved.
He said that people were putting that out.
Yeah, exactly.
That was how effective he saw Ribadu was.
Well, in a way, you see, I also mentioned issues like this in my book, Nigeria's Journalistic Militantism, that if people claimed that Ribadu worked one-sidedly, persecuting people that were not in the good books of the president, what it all boiled down to was that there were no framed-up charges. It did not make them innocent. If there were people who were not prosecuted because they were friends of the president, we had succeeding governments who could have taken the other tone, the other line. Nobody did anything. In the days after Obasanjo, EFCC truly became a toothless bulldog. Okay. It's only now that it's beginning to pick up gradually.
Okay. Shola from Ikpaja, first of all, my apologies for keeping you waiting this long. Please go ahead.
No problem. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
At least for the first time again, we are seeing somebody making a reference to the person of our past President Obasanjo RM. Either you like it or not, some will be for, some will be against. And I just pray again that this time, we are not going to be one-sided, like walking in the opposite direction of what we did within 1999, and some few years when Obasanjo was still in that government. I hope we are not moving into the opposite direction now, because we are making reference of 16 years of governance, rotting. That is the campaign now. We forget that when Obasanjo came in, it was at a time of a rotting government of 30-something years. People forget. And the purpose of the president coming to power at that time is to stabilize the uprising within the political and military sector. The economy is a different ballgame. We ought to have gotten another stage where the president of Yar'Adua, Goodluck Jonathan, would have taken us to the next level. We missed it. Now we are in the third phase here, where the governors, we believe we have dealt with the security network by the military and all sorts. Now we should move to the economic side of it. We are still kind fall of the decay government that has been a bit settled halfway that we need to continue. Government is about continuous. It's not about accusation or criticism. We are saying our dollar in fuel is within 20 and 40. Can we just start operation and working based on that level instead of criticizing why people are dying? Enough is enough. I think the media should please open up this discussion and let us begin to talk about running government like the days of the Awolowo and the Shagari.
All right,
in Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Shola. I don't know if you wanted to add
There's
any
basically
comments.
nothing to add.
There's nothing to
I
add.
quite agree with what he says.
So, be that as it may, how do you estimate the weight, power, strength of those who reportedly, allegedly, are fighting back against the change? Because everything that's sought to be done, it comes, we've talked about this whole matter about democracy, rule of law, and having to due process, and sometimes it's not the shortest route. And those who are under fire know how circuitous these routes can be and are exploiting it to the full. Do you think that this game, if you want to call it that, is going to be a short one, or do you think in the fullness of time we'll get all of that out of our hair and be able to get down to serious work?
I think we will. You see, the problem I fathom in the situation is this, that I hear people saying the only way forward for Nigeria is through federalism, is through this and through that, you know. And I keep telling people, if we as Nigerians are given the American Constitution to operate upon, we'll mess it up completely. And if the Americans are given the Nigerian Constitution to work upon,
you'll be surprised at how good that Constitution is.
How fluent the political process will be.
Yes.
So people come.
So what is it about us then that causes us to be this way? I will go abroad and just behave, conform to the norm there. We come here and at the airport, I think, throw out all the norm cards and decide that I can do anyhow. If I need one-way traffic, so be it. If I need to jump the queue, so be it. What do you think makes the ordinary Nigerian behave better outside than it does internally?
Generations of myopic thinking, generation of poor understanding, poor mental upbringing. Let me put it, I just told you about, diabolism. I told you about quality of education in universities. So when you combine all these forces together, a man that grows up all his life knowing that whatever happens to him is controlled by some forces that nobody knows about, how can you expect such a person to grow up in in-depth rational analysis? And then a person who goes to university and is taught science, taught rational science, and the professor teaching you rational science also tells you science has failed to factor in the God concept. So when you mix things up, quality in our mental.
But where's that value? Because by the time you had cause to write that book about Africa's diabolical entrapment, you know that it wasn't always this moral low that Nigeria seems to be in now. It wasn't like that 50 years ago.
Absolutely.
There was a sense of pride in the country. And
correct.
what do you think? Is it corruption? The military came, corrupted the system, or too much money came our way via, or what do you think? What are your theories?
It's just a combination of very, very many things. Now, it derailed.
I beg your pardon. I've been told Mr. Ogu from Lokoja has been waiting, and good morning, Ogu.
Yes, good morning, sir.
I apologize for keeping you waiting. Please go ahead.
It's okay. Thanks for your incisive program.
Thank you.
I appreciate the job done by this young man with you.
Friskila.
However, with the problem of Nigeria predates our democratic system of government that pattern along that of the American system. We got it wrong as soon as we started practicing the American system of government. Britain colonized Nigeria, and Britain practices a parliamentary system of government. Ordinarily, even if they handed over government to us in 1960, common sense demanded that we should have started practicing the same parliamentary system our colonial masters did. Look at Kenya, look at Nigeria. All the countries that were colonized by Britain and practiced parliamentary system are more stable than Nigeria today, because we went haywire, started practicing an American system that was quite expensive. Now our biggest problem is the American system of governance that we are practicing.
Okay.
Because parliamentary American democracy brings along with it high level of corruption because of the high cost of administration of the people. We have the federal system that is unfair. It's not well structured. The federal government alone takes 52% of the entire money that comes into the country. The state government takes some. The local government, whatever is left, is given to local government to manage. Our system is poor. The system we are practicing now. We need to go back to the parliamentary system, where the regions are used to govern our people.
All right.
That is the only way for us to get out of the corruption mess we are.
Okay.
In fact, somebody wrote some time ago that if today in Nigeria, if you put Jesus Christ in the same room with the Nigerian will corrupt Jesus Christ. In the same manner, if you put a Nigerian in the same room with Muhammad, the Nigerian will corrupt Muhammad. Our corruption system has reached a point that it was influenced by the American system of government and we need to go back to the drawing board and see how we can take parliamentary system, reduce the 36 countries into 6 regions, and then start all over again. If not, we have a long way to go in this country.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Mr. Ogu, for calling in, which goes back to the problem that you had highlighted much earlier on, the depth of the corruption. I hear people saying, enough with the excuses, roll up your sleeves and get with it. That's in an ordinary case scenario. But in a case where it's really unimaginable, and if you didn't think so before, just the Dasuki end of it alone, the Dasuki allegations alone, begins to boggle the mind. So there's so much work to be done, and when that gentleman says that we have a long way to go, people are complaining that we're not making enough traction now, and other people who are more, shall I say, who have been more encompassing when looking at the whole nature of the task before them, seem to think that this is not a tea party, it's not a picnic.
That's right. And I do not believe that the system of government we adopt will make any difference in the system. Because we may try presidential, we may try parliamentary. At the end of the day, it all boils down to the discipline of the mind.
Okay.
I mean, a parliamentary or presidential system is not going to stop people from employing ghost workers. It's not going to stop a Dasuki from consuming, from misappropriating $2.1 billion that was meant for weapon purchase. So we have a lot of other problems that we should address that boils down to the discipline of the individual. So not until this basic issue of discipline is addressed, which actually requires iron-handedness. I mean,
okay,
you know,
because people are not going to do the right thing simply because you ask them nicely.
Exactly.
Unfortunately,
ghost workers. When you say thousands of people are employed, and an individual alone pockets the salary of hundreds of workers that are not working. So, you know, parliamentary system wouldn't change that.
Okay, our last caller this morning, Mr. George from Ikeja. Good morning.
Good morning, Uncle Yeri.
Good morning, sir.
And good morning to your guest.
Thank you. Thank you.
Uncle Yeri, I'm in agreement with the assessment your guest gave to the publisher of Sahara Reporters, that's Mr. Shori.
Yes.
I've also been tracking him, and I noticed that during the last election, the Nigerians in diaspora played a role they have never played before in any election. And it made a lot of impact. I have, as I said, I have tracked Show's publications, especially during that period. And you will see that his publications were, you cannot controvert them. Most people cannot deny what he says, and what he says comes to pass.
Indeed.
We didn't have courageous journalists in Nigeria that had the tenacity to publish what he was publishing or to investigate the depth of what he was doing to also inform the public.
Mm-hmm.
And then you saw that the Nigerians in diaspora were highly mobilized.
Yeah.
I don't know who mobilized them, but they were mobilized, and they in turn mobilized Nigerians at home. Nigerians at home listen to them because they believe.
You're going to have to wrap up for me, please, George.
Yes. So there was that impact in that election. And I think they should continue with governance. Now that we have a government in place, they shouldn't end with just changing those who we perceive not to be good enough. They should also put the ones they are now in check so as to ensure that there is good governance in the country.
Thank you very much, Mr. George. Quite frankly, we've run out of time. I've enjoyed this conversation so very much with Frisky La. Well, actually, it's Friday Agmonlahok, a.k.a. Frisky La.
Exactly.
But then you're not going to see any article of his signed by Friday. It's going to be signed by Frisky. So stay with Frisky.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. I'll be back tomorrow with a fresh edition from my guest and I, Yori Folani. Bye for now.